community and Egypt, and actually strip the Egyptian government from the confidence that they won over the 2 years period that the president had. The Russian airplane that crashed in Sinai, the Italian gentleman who was killed, all of this is happening rapidly, and the whole idea is to destroy the image of the Egyptian government.
Right. Perhaps let me also tie this particular topic up with a request that was made earlier in the week by the European Parliament, Mr. Nabil, which urged Cairo to cooperate with Italy in a swift, transparent and impartial joint investigation as, to quote them, to apprehend Giulio's killers. Now, what do you think were the real reasons behind this request when the President had clearly stated, and Egypt had clearly stated on a number of occasions, that they were doing and exerting their utmost efforts to find Giulio's killers?
For the first time, the President in his statement made a hint, very significant hint. He said those who were behind the Russian plane crash are those who are behind the killing of this young Italian man.
Right.
It means that he is referring to terrorism. For the first time, to be mentioned like that in this context, that those who are the enemies of Egypt are trying hard to sabotage any effort by Egypt to go forward, either in tourism or in economy, generally speaking,
Right.
or in relations with other friendly countries. I believe that maybe we are a bit late. We must make more speed in our investigations, in our effort to catch the criminals.
Right.
I want to remind you that till now, in spite of the fact that Russia and President Putin himself declared that the terrorists who were behind the Russian plane crash, we didn't say anything till now.
Right.
Nothing at all. Just we used to say the investigations are going on.
But it did take us even a long time to find out who was behind the assassination of General Prosecutor Hisham Barakat.
Yeah,
so it's a fault within the system itself.
Yes, I agree with you.
Right.
I agree with you. It must take time.
Right.
Yes, I agree with you. But let us make more effort so as to lessen the time or to cut short the time.
Perhaps something that the Egyptian media highlighted to a large extent was that the President had touched on the disappearance of an Egyptian citizen in Italy. He's a resident, Adel Muawad, who went missing last October. This is something that the President highlighted, and he said that he believed that the Italian side would give it the necessary attention. Now, why do you think that this particular case of an Egyptian going missing in Italy since last October went in the media, even locally, went largely untended to, and we don't even know the fate of this Egyptian citizen?
I'm afraid that this fact mentioned about the Egyptian in Italy was explained in another way, in a bad way, by some other people.
Right.
They said, so why, since about 6 months, we kept silent? I know that the family of that Egyptian complained and tried to make some effort to push the authorities to try to find out what's
happening,
what is behind all this. But our official authorities didn't take care. They didn't pay attention. Just now, after 6 months, they started to pay attention. So it is not in our favor to mention this fact.
Right.
Second, it was explained in a very bad way by how. Our enemies said, what we mentioned about the Egyptian kidnapped, or disappeared in Italy means that you, Italy, drop it and we'll drop it. Forget it and we will forget it about the accents. Either the Egyptian man who disappeared in Italy or the Italian who was killed in Egypt.
Right.
So we had to be more clear to explain that our good intentions is we want to prove to everybody that maybe it needs time to discover who are the real criminals,
Right.
who are behind the crime, here and there.
All right. Engineer Hassan, let me come back to you and perhaps back to the interview. The President also touched on the region's war with terrorism, obviously describing any international intervention perhaps as well in Libya in particular as too risky. How important is Libya for Italy's own national security?
Libya is our western gate.
Right.
And actually, I think Libya is very, very important, and it was a very wise decision from our side not to get involved in any military action in Yemen, though we wanted really. We had good intentions. We wanted to support our brothers, the Saudis, in their fight against the Houthis, but we were getting ready for a possible confrontation across our border in Derna and in Sirte, because we are under a direct threat, because most of the people who fought in Daesh, in ISIS, in the northern region of Syria and Iraq, once the Russians started to bomb this area, they fled to Turkey, and from Turkey they went to Libya, and they gathered in the Gulf of Sirte. And there is a huge number of Daesh personnel in the Sirte area, and definitely they're not in Libya for a picnic. They're communicating with the rest of the groups in West Africa and in Nigeria and in the Sahara countries to arrange for something that could be directed toward Egypt. We need to be very ready. I think the killing of Giulio actually had something to do with the going coordination between us and Italy in regard of military possible operations in Libya. They wanted to spoil this possible cooperation between us and Italy. I think it's very important for both countries, Italy and Egypt, to really consider that Libya is a direct threat for both of us. It's less than 8 hours from the Libyan shores to Italy, and we have the longest borders with any country is with Libya. So we all remember the Farafra incident that took place some time ago. That was, that the origin of this particular operation was from Libya. I think Derna is a direct threat to us. We need the European community to support the legal and recognized government in Libya, because this is the only way out of the crisis. And crisis in Libya will not be, settled by force, because what we see is everybody is armed to the teeth in Libya. The warehouses of weapons that Gaddafi had were opened, and everybody has got the latest and most sophisticated armament. And we will not, Egypt, I think, we will not get involved in military land operations unless we were attacked.
Right.
We definitely support the National Army of Libya. General Haftar is doing a good job. Benghazi is making progress. Let's wait and see, because within the coming 2 weeks, the vision will be clearer in Libya, what's going on over there. but definitely Libya is a direct threat to us as well as Italy. We need to resolve the Giulio incidents as soon as possible to recover our relations with the Italian side and,
Okay.
resume them.
Mr. Nabil, let me ask you a little bit about Libya, and perhaps as well that the President had said that it was too risky for an international intervention in the country. How did you how did you analyze his statements?
The international intervention will not be in favor of the Libyan people.
Right.
Frankly speaking. Why? The political settlement was delayed till now in Libya. Nobody asked this question, frankly speaking.
Right.
Because the Western powers want some extremists, mainly the Muslim Brotherhood, to participate in the government.
Right.
That's the real reason.
Very true.
So that is their explanation to the so-called national unity in Egypt. To include, not to exclude, the extremists, or let us say the terrorists. I believe that the only way to defend our national security is to help General Haftar, to help the legitimate Libyan army, the legitimate government, not secretly, openly. This is our right. Defend Egypt means to defend our interests in Libya. I mean to help Libya to enjoy security and stability. The only way is to help, I mean Egypt to help Libyan legitimate authorities by any means, by many ways. And you remember that one day, the United States of America considered that they are threatened by Iraq. Look, where is
Iraq
in geography? In the geography, where is the United States and where is Iraq?
Yeah.
Too far. But that's what happened. Now we have hundreds of kilometers, common borders. So we have the right to defend ourselves.
Right. But the thing is that was not touched on perhaps during the interview, but the President did call for the arms embargo on on the Libyan government to be lifted. But the UN always says that they don't want to do that in fear that the arms could end up in the wrong hands. Do you see any justification to that particular position?
They don't want to provide the legitimate army, the legitimate government with arms. It means that in an indirect way they want to help the extremists and the terrorists, as they are doing in Syria. Let us speak frankly. Who supported the terrorists in Syria?
Right.
The United States of America, Qatar, Turkey. Till now. And that's why when Russia started to bomb some places in Syria, they said, oh, the Russians are not bombing ISIS only. They meant their friends in Al-Qaeda and Nusra Front.
Right.
The allies of the Turks, the Turkish government and the US administration. So let us not be naive. We must understand what is going on in the world. As I told you before, the West, generally speaking, as you mentioned since some moments, the statement of the European Parliament, completely against Egypt 100%.
Right.
Here you can conclude that those people, why they didn't mention anything about what's going on in Turkey against democracy and liberalism? Why?
Indeed.
They are closing newspapers and seizing newspapers to be the spokesman of the government instead of the spokesman of the people or the opposition.
Right.
Second, those who are giving us lessons about human rights are the same people who killed 1 million Iraqi, 2 million Vietnamese, more than 500,000 Japanese in Hiroshima and Nagasaki without any military justification because the war was about to come to an end.
Right.
So we are not in need to lessons by anybody about human rights. At the same time, you have to put in your consideration a real interference in our internal affairs. Through what? Finance, foreign financed civil organizations of the civil society.
Right.
12 organizations refused to be under the eye of the law here, because as you know, the law stipulates that through the Ministry of Tadama, Solidarity. They refuse. So they take money from under the table. For what? To declare, to send messages to the world that we are a police state and we are arresting people without any reason and so on and so on. That is the reason. So we are in a real war.
Right.
I want to clarify this aspect of what is going on in our life. We must be vigilant. We must keep our independent foreign policy. Why they are very angry and furious from us? Because now we are conducting a real independent foreign policy.
Indeed, and we are seeing a very important shift. And speaking of foreign policy and perhaps the government, let's take a look at our second report for the evening and the expected cabinet reshuffle that we're expecting at any time now. Let's take a look at the following report.
Prime Minister Sharif Ismail continues his search for candidates to take charge of a number of portfolios in a limited cabinet reshuffle. Although Prime Minister Ismail said recently that no cabinet reshuffle is expected at present, informed sources that Ismail has in fact started to meet potential candidates for ministerial positions. The sources said that the reshuffle would take place before the government presents its program to the House of Representatives on the 27th of March. According to the Constitution, reshuffles should be approved by Parliament after that date. According to the sources, the upcoming reshuffle will include the Ministers of Finance, Investment, Irrigation, Tourism, Civil Aviation, Education, Health, Justice and Religious Endowments. The post of Minister of Justice became vacant last week after Prime Minister sacked Ahmed al-Sind. Earlier, Prime Minister Ismail said his government will present its strategy program to the Parliament during the second half of March. The government can only remain in power if its policy program is approved by the Parliament. Ismail said that the policy program is aimed at achieving social justice and overhauling the country's administrative sector, with a special focus on education, health and transport. The government was put in place before the current chamber, the first in a 3-year lapse, was elected late last year. Under Egypt's constitution, the parliament is required to endorse the current government's agenda. If it does